Our next speaker is Gareth. Gareth is from Priestnall School, and we had the opportunity, Tara Flood, Lloyd Halls and myself from ALLFIE to go over and visit Priestnall School in Stockport with Gareth. And one of the key messages from that visit was that sense of real welcome that was mentioned there by Alison. I often wonder, you know, when we talk about staff development and training and professional development, how much does it actually need for a teacher at a school to convey a welcome? Because it's amazing what can happen when people feel they are welcomed, both teachers and youngsters. And that sense of welcome is really very subversive. But that's what we found at Priestnall School. There was, and we talked to lots of youngsters there. So regardless of what the policy statement was, and the curriculum statement was, and you know, I've not seen a school yet that doesn't have those policy statements, it's whether they translate into youngsters and teachers feeling a part of the place, and feeling as though they've got, again, their contribution to make. I can say certainly, and certainly Tara and Chloe and I felt that coming away from the school, Gareth has been instrumental in creating that, and he's got 20 minutes to tell us how.
Well, thank you, Joe. Now, I'm not very good at standing still, but I'm going to try my best, okay? Because people are filming and all sorts of. Are we okay? Can everybody hear me? Right, and also the biggest challenge for me is speaking for just 20 minutes, so I think Joe might have to pull the plug or something when it's time to finish up. So I think this encapsulates for me what it's like being a SENCO in a mainstream school now. It's a bit like patting fog, or trying to squeeze that balloon, you get a bit and another bit bobs at the top, you get all of that and another bit bobs at the bottom, and actually it's virtually impossible to do everything you need to do all the time. But that's also what makes it a really exciting job to do, and why I still love doing it 14 years in at Priestnall, where I've been for a considerable amount of time. We've been very lucky to influence a massive change, really. I think it's useful to start with how we sort of define things. Our work starts from the Salamanca statement, starts from the principle. If you live in our area, you come to our school, and ultimately it's my job to make that happen, and happen well. I think later on there may be an opportunity to see the Educational Rights Alliance manifesto, which was done as part of an unconference with a group of head teachers, parents and carers, young people and SENCOs. And I'm very pleased to say that on Monday this week our governing body signed up to it as a school, as well as individuals like myself and our therapists and various other people. So I'm really pleased with that. And, throughout this presentation, I'm going to link various bits that I've written that will help, if you want to read some more about things. It all sits on my website, so if you want to just have a good nosy later on, you can do. All right. Okay. So what's our commitment as a school, really? I'm thinking about this. Thinking about our commitment is this whole school approach. Yeah. It doesn't matter how you're labelled or where you come from or what your starting point is. Everybody should be treated equally. And that's really important, a bugbear of mine of people segregating data sets for young people who've got statements or whatever. It needs to be done inclusively, all right? And I think the important part of this, from my perspective, is lots of professional development and training, yeah? I think, you can't expect a young maths teacher to understand how to include a new group of young people if they haven't met them or understood how to do that before, okay? One of my publications of Centre for New Teachers tries to encapsulate all the training we've developed over 10 years so that schools can just buy it and deliver it themselves, which is important because we need to spread this word about professional development and professionalism. The key thing for me, which aligns itself well with the new code of practice, is that actually young people and parents and carers need to be really central to our thinking. Yeah? This notion of co-production is good if it's done properly. Yeah? That's not these schools that do pupil voice once a year. So you've had your say in November. Bloody hell, what's something to say now? I think it's really, really important that those dialogues, that discourse, is on a daily basis. Yeah? So we meet and talk to people all the time. It's really powerful. And I think that's so important. And it's important to monitor everything as part of inclusive policy and practice. As Joe says, schools have to have certain policies. There's a list of things you've got to have on your website, yeah? But actually the reality of schools and inclusive schools is about what happens on a day-to-day basis. What happens when that young person comes in? How are they met? How are they greeted? What opportunities do they have? And I think that's really important. Okay, so what I think an inclusive school has to start with an inclusive curriculum offer. Too often, as a specialist leader of education, I'm going into schools that are poor, and actually the curriculum offer is actually excluding some of our young people. Yeah? I am having the best time of my life at the moment throughout the year because I'm doing Year 9 options meetings, and I meet with all the parents and carers of young people after a series of evening events, and young people can do whatever they like at our school. They are not forced to do EBAC subjects or a foreign language if they don't like French. They've been to France. Yeah? Actually, French is quite good for me because I can order large amounts of wine when I go to the summit. But not for everybody. And it's really important to understand that an inclusive curriculum offer provides the initial support as part of the bedrock of what schools do. Okay? We need leadership that values an inclusive approach. I'm pleased to say our new head teacher that starts in September, John, is exceptional, and from the 6 head teachers I've worked for, 4 as a SENCO, is undoubtedly the best in as far as understanding what inclusion really means and the principles we are working towards. And I'm privileged for that. There is a story behind that. As a governor of the school, I did appoint him, but there you go, that's another story. Always handy. Anyway, and I think educating staff, other adults, and the peer group is an essential part of that continuum. Yeah? I think it's really, really important. So I've done quite a bit of writing on that. If you're interested, you can find out in my website. The biggest figure for me, and the biggest data point for me, is the fact that our needs figure is 0. Every single young person from our school leaves to go to education, employment or training to do something they want to do. Okay? The young person leaves, one of our young people who was very complex when it came to us, really troubled primary school existence, last year with a C in GCSE art, he's doing a level 3 art qualification, and his granny saw me at Stockport train station when she was on a stall there, told me how he went to a Comic-Con convention with some of his peers independently last weekend. Yeah? Now what better outcome would you want for somebody as far as their life chances and opportunity in our world than him to have a real passion and interest to be on qualifications he loves doing, but also to be independent in groups of peers. And I think that's really important. And it's important school evaluation mechanisms support that methodology. Okay. Some young people have amazing strengths, and it's my job and our school's job to tap into those strengths, not to try and hamper them or dampen them down by forcing them into a curriculum that doesn't allow that. And I think that's exactly what Alison was saying to start with. Creating opportunities is important. And for me, it's about high aspirations for everybody, yeah? Not preconceived ideas. And I think that's very, very clear. Cultures that segregate people through data analysis or approaches, if you're in that set, you can only get that level or that grade, perpetuate this myth that people are not the same, yeah? They are lower. And I think it's important to challenge these. We've done lots of work on our student passports, which are engaging with the young person centrally in metacognitive approaches in looking at how they want to learn and what they think we need to do as a school to enable them to do even better. And you can see some short videos of that on my website as well. Okay, so I think I just bung this in really because I think there's a massive issue in schools at the moment with young people's perceptions of disability and teachers' perceptions of what is disability as well. And I think it's important to challenge that through peer education and awareness. I think every SENCO needs to stand up and do assemblies and say this is what I stand for, and I use the disabling imagery book that Richard wrote as some of the baselines for some of the stuff I use for assemblies, and say this is my job in school, this is what I stand up about. Okay? And actually, the peer group in schools is probably the biggest untapped inclusive resource that we have. Yeah? I have never, in 20 years, seen a young person tipped out of a wheelchair in any of the schools I've worked. I have seen somebody sit next to an autistic young person and tap away until it gets too much, and then they react and tell them to F off and react. Yeah? And that is being a child. You're testing boundaries, you're experimenting things. If you educate the peer group and explain about that young person's needs and what they can do to support that, as well as work with the young person to understand themselves, our peer group is hugely supportive in our school and hugely understanding of difference. And that is the biggest difference, I think, at Priestnall School to many other inclusive schools that I have the privilege to work with. I think autism is one of the biggest areas of research that I'm involved with as a member of honorary staff at Manchester University. And I think also is something we've had significant gains in understanding as we've developed and working with the young people. You know, simply being born with autism, you have 8 times more likely a chance of being permanently excluded from school before anything happens, which is shocking. Yeah, we've taken 3 young people who are permanently excluded from other schools already this year, and they're doing exceptionally well. I think it's really, really important. And actually, if you are interested in some of that work, the 4-year ESRC study we did with Neil Humphrey and Wendy Symes highlights these environmental factors that are important. And I think it came right through from all the talks this morning, and will be permeated throughout the day, I'm sure. We're not trying to fix or move a person into our setting. We're looking about how our setting and the environmental factors respond to that individual. Okay? And the environmental factors are deep. You know, it's social, it's understanding, it's emotional. It's not just a physical environment. And I think that's something people fail to understand. 5 minutes speed, I've told you I've filled the time. The other thing that I've done quite a bit of work on is working with parents and carers, because that's vital in our arrangements. And I think it's really, really important. And from our research, those are the key points that came through. And actually, it's common sense in it. Yeah? Actually, there should be complete, open, transparent communication with everybody, because there's no value in doing anything but that. Yeah? I might disagree with some people. Many people disagree with me. That's the way I'm made up, and that's what I quite enjoy. This is what we provide for everybody that comes to our school. It sits on our website with our information report. These are the key people on my staff team. Yeah, we have our own speech and language therapist. I have my own psychotherapist. I have young people stood in the playground saying, I won't see you in French, I've got a therapy session next, I'll see you in PE. Yeah? The openness and honestness about how we can work on a therapeutic whole school approach as part of a whole school system makes us different from people who are trying to work still on medicalised process models of you've got 6 weeks of sessions and crack on, good luck to you, you know. And I think that's a real different approach. I love working with lots of therapists, because when I sit down and have a brew, I say brew, a cup of tea or whatever, and make sure everybody understands me, you know, over a break. The professional discourse in our staff team is amazing. There's a challenge for a young person how a speech and language therapist would go about it compared to somebody else. The teaching assistant who perhaps has seen it from a different angle. It's hugely powerful, and I think I'm really lucky to have that opportunity. So I'm going to whiz through a really important slide for me. Knowing the law is vital in my role in supporting people. Yeah? And I would urge anybody that hasn't seen it to look at ITSE's website and their online legal training for the new Children's and Families Act, where you can do that yourself and it's an accredited qualification. Really, really powerful. The best thing I ever did as a new SENCO was volunteer for ITSE and support parents and carers at tribunals and learn about what was happening elsewhere. And I still answer loads of emails from parents around the country today, and I'm really pleased to be able to do that. A key message for schools is every teacher is responsible for every child in their school. Okay, that's part of the Teachers' Terms and Conditions 2012. If you don't like it, go do another job, is my message for you. And to help people, you see, I even wrote a publication, aren't I? Okay, I better sell my own stuff. We do need young people with complex needs to have a secure base. We have a large number of young people with quite complex attachment needs who are in care in our area. And actually having their own designated area where they can dictate what they do is important. And it's really easy to set up as part of a whole school approach when you have understanding of difference and individuality. I've nicked this from Professor Steve Higgins, the banana armour principle. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. What works for me in my setting is not directly transferable to another setting, but the ideas and the philosophy and the way we've done it can feed into systems which allow individual schools to develop, which I think is really important. Learning is not just about academic attainment, GCSEs, outcomes. Okay? Learning is about lots of different things. We have 2 tortoises in school, and some of our very complex young people really enjoy having a lesson where they can make sure they get a little run around. They're quite quick, you know. and clean them out and look after them. And you know, loads of people want to look after them in the holidays, mainly me because I think they're great. You know, I thought this was an Einstein quote, but unfortunately somebody told me the other day it wasn't, but I still like it. Yeah, doing the same thing time and time again. You don't have to just have lots of teaching assistants doing things for people, or lowering expectation. We can do things differently. The drama therapists we have working with some of our very, very challenging young people from the sort of start in life that they've had is making a phenomenal difference. And I think it's about being creative and realising you can be. And for me, it's about increasing lots of resilience factors for young people in our school setting, but also within their family groups and their lives by working effectively with parents and carers and those young people at the core of our community. We are a community school, and I think that's still really important. I know we just passed this very quickly, but I think an important message for schools, can I have 2 more minutes? I'm sorry, 1 more, is that actually lots of people see presenting behaviour and react to it in a very medicalised model. We need to look at starting points and see how we change and make sure environments are emotionally regulated so we're not reacting, but we're being proactive in supporting those. And I've done quite a lot of work in Ireland to do with that. So, moving on very quickly, I've told you I have too much stuff. I'll put this on my website, or Rich can send it to people, so it's not a problem. The SENCO skill set, still, being an advocate is the most important for me. Being able to advocate for all those different groups is vital. Have we found the final piece? Probably not, probably never find it. They never include it in the box, but it doesn't stop me looking. And I think it's really, really important. This is a picture of Megan, one of my young ladies in year 11. There was a big commotion the other day. I went down, thought what was happening. She made this chair sculpture. It's the most solid thing you've ever seen in your life. You can never move that. Perfectly safe, so everybody can calm down. But she wanted a picture of it before she'd take it apart. And I think that's fine. You know, that's brilliant. And that's amazing. And I think some things that are amazing in schools are not just about grades and attainment. Some things that are amazing just look amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it is not necessarily what we do, it's the way we say it, but it also is, and again we can testify to the fact that the experience of the students at the school was very much a sense of belonging and being a part of something much bigger than they as individuals. And again, it's not this question of difference, which is very much a part of it. It's what do we do about the fear of difference? Because that is, we cultivate with these labels that we often attach to people, fears and a misunderstanding and a real damage to those as individuals, but the culture that we're in. And I think in terms of Gareth, and again, people have got 20 minutes, so, you know, there's lots more they could say, and each of the speakers have got websites, as you do these days, of course, websites and lots of other information that they're disseminating to reinforce and to expand the messages that they're conveying. But thank you very much, Gareth. Really appreciate it. You're